Transfer student experience.
The transfer student experience.
The transfer student experience.
If you want, I can marry you, and then you can have your green card. And then I can take your green card to Australia, and we both win.
This is true. We'd have to be married for 4 years, though, until we divorce.
I think we can make it work.
Is that like a big thing in Iran? Like if we get divorced, are they going to like chop my hands off or something?
Oh, no. Iranians, they do not care about divorce. Divorce is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have known you from class, but for people that don't know, you are a senior studying chemical engineering, and you're also a supply chain intern at Pepsi Co.
Oh, you did your research, but you didn't find my meme page on Instagram, so I'm a little hurt.
Okay, I didn't do the full deep dive, but maybe that's something we can talk about as your extracurriculars. I didn't find out, though, where you transferred from.
Ooh, yeah. I like to keep it mysterious. So I transferred from community college. I only ever wanted to go to USC ever since high school, but I have ADHD, I'm also autistic, and I was not medicated until I was about 17. So, naturally my grades weren't that great. I just got rejected from USC out of high school, and this was the one school I wanted to go to. So I went to community college. I just buckled down. I was like, okay, what do I have to do to get into USC? Every day I was checking the standards, classes I had to take, what grades I had to get. I was just harassing every single academic advisor I could find.
What are some side projects that you're working on now? Can you talk to me a little bit about what you're working on?
I definitely have been playing, like you saw when we were in physics together. I was trying to work on my electric skateboard, and then that kind of fizzled out. So I've been definitely toying around with that a lot more. I've been trying to get into yoga because I'm very flexible. I want to try and get in on that. That sounds like fun. Cooking. I'm playing really that academic, I hate to admit. I also been looking for someone abroad to marry me for a little green card marriage, but that's beside the point.
Wait, green card marriage for overseas or in America?
Oh, overseas. Who wants to come here right now?
I mean, some people. Me, maybe.
Yeah, that's an L for you, Chief. We're 5 months into lockdown, but I digress.
Not too academic, but that's okay because it's interesting to be versatile. What career goals are you sort of aiming towards? I know obviously we touched on chemical engineering. Can you flesh that out a little bit more for me?
The beauty of chemical engineering is it's perfect for very flighty STEM people like myself. I like chemistry, but I'm not married to it. I like math. I'm not married to it. I like principles of mechanical and regular engineering, but I'm not married to it. But with chemical engineering, it's just a nice little smorgasbord, charcuterie board of all these subjects that I like. And then career-wise, you can do whatever you want. The majority of people in my department are trying to get into petroleum, but that's never really my thing. So I can do pharma, I can do food science, I can do manufacturing, I can do nuclear, literally do whatever I want to. I worked at Pepsi. I have other people who work for Johnson & Johnson, Chevron. Even some people I think work for a bank. You can literally do whatever you want.
Being a senior, you've obviously done some classes. Knowing your goals in terms of being versatile and I guess maybe going into the chemical industry, but what were you looking for in USC classes to contribute to that goal? What were you hoping you could learn here at USC?
Again, what I liked about USC was, we are a fancy private school. We have all these ties to so many different companies and so many different people and just experts at learning experience and just hearing from everyone, seeing what experience I think I would like to try first.
What are some classes that you sort of found challenging but ended up actually being rewarding in the end?
Definitely physics with Peruvian, shout out Armenian King. Probably PChem with Jahan Dawati as well. With my chemical engineering courses, again, they're very tough courses. They're very collaborative. No one does these classes on their own. That was a great lesson for me to learn, honestly, because as a transfer student, it's so easy to just feel out of your league, to feel like you're the dumbest person in the room. You're competing with kids from these fancy prep schools all over the world. I've met literal billionaires, kids of celebrities. It's so easy to feel like you don't fit in, like you didn't earn your spot. But just kind of seeing everyone else struggle with you, it's just a nice little equalizer. Hey man, the lowest graduating doctor is still a doctor.
I think that's definitely a benefit of USC is just have diversity.
Yeah, just diversity of every single walk of life. I'm a local Southern California, and here I am chit-chatting with my homeboy from Melbourne.
Exactly. Well, and you've also got an interesting ethnic background. You're not all American, right?
No, I'm Iranian American. So my dad's Shia Iranian, so he just came straight from Iran to America, but my mom is Sunni, and Sunnis are the minority Muslims in Iran. So her family, like a lot of Sunni Persians, they moved to the United Arab Emirates. So my mom spent her teen years, most of her young adult life in Dubai, in the UAE. So there's just my cousins, their first language is Arabic. It's interesting. It's the UAE is kind of like the melting pot of the Middle East.
Why America?
My dad, he went to this boarding school in Kentucky because the owner, he knew a bunch of Iranians from my dad's province of Kerman, so there were a lot of Iranians over there. It was scary. My dad was 16. He spoke no English. There was a political revolution. People were like pointing guns in his face and saying, look, if you step over the line of campus, we're going to kill you, bury your body, no one's going to find you. And then my dad kind of found his footing with the Black Barbecue Pitmasters in Kentucky. And then he studied in Minnesota, then USC, got a job offer. And so I've been kind of a lifelong Trojan.
Wow, that's a crazy history.
Oh, yeah. No.
What was the most difficult part transferring for you?
You know what? Honestly, the hoops you have to jump through, the bureaucracy. Like in community college, what's so nice is professors have so much more control of their courses, like their waiting lists. They can just add and drop people at a whim. There are no TAs. They have their office hours and they stick to them. They're just so much more accessible. But, you know, professors here at USC, they're doing research. They're doing a million other things. You have to jump through TAs, departments. It's not as streamlined. My community college is pretty small, so it's easy to get that one-on-one time. But here, it's a little bit harder, and you do have to put in a little bit more extra work, get that same personal relationship with your professors. And then you also have to compete with so many other people. Even though my department's pretty small, the research positions filled up so quickly, everything just filled up quickly.
Sometimes when we transferred to college, I think we definitely experienced challenges, especially in how the university communicates resources and classes and just how to do things as transfers. Even student organizations too, just finding stuff on campus, I think is a bit of a challenge. I'm curious to know from you, like what communication challenges did you face and what would you wish that TSC as a student organization made more clear for you?
My biggest challenge was I did 1 year of community college when transferring, but most of the other transfer students did 2 years at their other institution before coming. So even though at the beginning chemical engineering classes, I was with the same group of transfers who were, you know, my age and everything. Like I developed a friendship with them, but they were going through courses faster than me because they finished all their GEs and stuff, but I didn't. So, you know, junior year, I stepped in, I realized, oh no, like I am a full academic year behind them. I'm not in any classes. And now my peers, I don't know these people. They have their established friend groups. It's hard to break in. I was totally alone. I had some, you know, events, TM occur that made me feel just so isolated. But then, you know, one person, that's all it took was just one person reaching out, being kind. And now I have an actual friend group. And that made all the difference. So I guess I kind of wish I took into account the difference in like, you know, thought down the line and made friends with the kids who are a little bit younger than me. My situation's a little bit more unique in the sense I've transferred in 1 year as opposed to 2. So there isn't, you know, this isn't on you. This is kind of on me for not having the foresight. Like, I think just offering that community of being there. I did actually try to do the mentor program, but my mentee wasn't really into it and it just kind of fell out. And again, that happens. That's life. That wasn't really on the fault of the organization.
I know people sort of would say better marketed, being more present or just reaching out, doing a bit better outreach because a lot of people just don't know about us until they're, you know, 1 or 2 months in when they could have known about us 1 or 2 months before they even came.
I mean, that's fair, but at the same time, like, what is there to do? There's 44,000 people. Like, you could just hang up flyers every single place, but that's not very realistic. My advice is you as a student have that obligation to take initiative. Like, look at the class list. It's available. It's there. You should just want it. You should want to connect with your fellow student and not just bank on your classes because I did that and it's proved me pretty good.
For sure. No, it's definitely something to keep in mind is being proactive and definitely something that I sort of understand too is coming in as a junior in engineering where a majority of people are A, a little bit more introverted, B, like you said, they've already got their cliques. So
Exactly.
I definitely understand where you're coming from in terms of it being hard to make friends because it actually in my engineering class, like it took me a good semester for people to understand that I wasn't an exchange student from Australia, that I was transfer, that I was staying, for them to feel comfortable enough to actually interact with me.
Fun fact, when I was in the UAE, I went to an Australian international school. Everyone was from Melbourne. I actually met the Prime Minister, the Senator, I don't know the term, of Victoria at the time. The way y'all communicate is different, you know? You guys are a bit more blunt. You love the C word. It's like colloquial. When you see like the yes sirs, yes ma'ams, it's rude. It's like you're saying, you know, I'm only talking to you because I have to. And I imagine like these people who are not used to that form of speaking, they must have thought you were like so abrasive. Who the hell is this Crocodile Dundee over here trying to talk to me? Y'all call me the C word.
Right. I mean, I wasn't going around calling my professors the C word, but no, I get what you mean. It's definitely a cultural shift. So I had that added difficulty. But to your point of being proactive, for sure, like I understand what you mean because a lot of the friends that I first made were not even in my major. They were just other transfer students. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
That happened to me too. Like, because, you know, at all the transfer events, you meet these transfer kids, you develop that clique. Sometimes they transfer out. Like my literal best friend, he was a chemie, but now he's a classics and economics major. So it's like, oh no.
Right. Don't just limit yourself to people within your own major to branch out.
Yeah, GEs are a great place to meet people. Like, a lot of my good friends, they're not in chemical engineering. Don't get me wrong, I love my friends in chemie, and they're very sweet people, but I made a lot of more friends in the film department than I thought I ever would.
And you're finding things okay? I mean, this is your second last semester, right?
Yeah, second to last semester, 5th year of college, and honestly, I kind of like being at home again. Immigrant mom brings me chopped fruit. I do my work at my little desk.
That is nice. That nice treatment. I definitely miss that. Just like little things like, having your stuff washed. When I exit my basement, having a steaming plate of food, sitting there, it's convenient. I think you definitely don't realize that until it's gone.
Like the creature comforts of home, for sure. Like, I feel like I'm in middle school again, but like kind of in a good way.
It's interesting to see like what this time has done, because I feel like it has brought like a lot of people together.
It also kind of taught you like who you're hanging around because like you have to see them in your classes versus who you talk to because you just enjoy their company. You are the company you keep, I think, is a very big thing people need to realize. Like, you need to be around people who make you want to do your best, who make you want to be focused. Like, if you're just around people who make you feel inferior, who make you feel like you have to put up a front, you just have to disguise some part of yourself, then this isn't a great relationship for your mental health, and you will do worse. I understand you have to do it for like political reasons, like, this person has this connection, that connection, but you kind of need that real group of friends and then like your political group of friends.
Honestly, I think people are coming to appreciate that honesty a little bit more and that authenticity a little bit more. I mean, LA, it's a tough city because I feel like it's all about image. It's all about that shallow personality and things like that. But I think people definitely appreciate when you're blunt. I mean, some people get offended, but that's okay. That's just the natural way of life, right? You're going to offend some people. But I think most people appreciate honesty and authenticity.
I realized that, like at first I used to be subconscious because, I can't read social cues. I'm not good at lying. I'm hyperverbal, so I physically can't shut up. It's honestly a good thing. Like, some people just need that blunt person to be like, dude, this is a bad idea, and they know I'm saying it because I love them. I don't want my friends looking stupid. I don't want you to do this thing that's gonna better coming from me than you like cringing 2 days later.
Right, you're sort of that logical perspective in the friendship group.
I'm telling you this because I love you, not to hurt you, and like, I'm just real. You gotta live with that. Like, obviously there's a nice way of telling someone versus just like doing it to twist the knife a little.
And I mean, how did you find that, like being that sort of person? How did you find that initially coming in and interacting with other people? Most
people in our field, they're very timid. They're not really like that, which is fine. It was just like kind of different people. Some people thought I was fake because I was coming on so strong, and like, yeah, that's a valid way to view it because most people are like, you don't have to say it if it's real. I don't know. Everyone has their perspectives and it's valid. Someone's going to dislike you regardless, so they might as well like dislike you for the correct reasons. If you want to say I'm a loudmouth, if you want to say I'm obnoxious, like, that's fine. That's a valid critique of me. But to say like, oh, she's so fake, I'm like, your data's a little off.
At least they don't like the real you, which is something you can't help.
Exactly. And you know what? That's fine. People don't have to like you. It's okay if people don't. It doesn't mean you're a bad person if other people dislike you. But you have to get comfortable with that rejection and that dislike and that isolation. Like, you have to be comfortable being by yourself.
Which I think is a thing that people need to hear. When I came in as a transfer student, I had certain expectations of how people would sort of see me. And especially being an Australian and having the, I guess, expectation that Americans love Australians, which they do, but I was putting that expectation on everybody, and I thought I'd make friends a lot quicker, and I didn't. I think I definitely got let down in that regard.
Oh yeah, it's like the cultural thing, because I will not say names. Someone's like, oh my God, he's so rude. I was like, no, he's just Australian. This is how they talk. Like, to them, that bluntness, that jovialness, that's a sign of respect.
This is how we are. Like, we'll be blunt, we'll joke around, have a good time.
Again, it's that appreciation for what's different and the way other people show love and show affection. I guess the most important thing you can learn to read is reading intention. Reading intention,
and yeah, I guess like action is always like seeing someone's actions is always going to be more accurate. It's interesting because I feel like if you're coming from a more diverse background, it can be easy to think that you have to quench that and fit in with everyone else. Definitely when I came here, right, and I realized that my humor wasn't going as far as I thought it would, I was like, mate, like, do I need to tone it down? Like, should I just change the way I need to learn how like these guys joke around. And so there's definitely like a conflict there because it's like, well, do I be myself or do I try and fit in?
I felt that because, there are days where I'm pretty remember when we had that physics exam, it was Halloween. I was the one girl in costume and I was a juggalo. That was definitely one of the more mortifying experiences. Maybe I should tone myself down. Then I'm like, you know what? No one cares. They're freaking out about the tabs. No one is stressing over you. There's freedom in that.
Put it this way, I'll always remember you as that one girl who came dressed in a costume to class. So you're memorable, and that's something, especially now where there's just so much competition. Being memorable, like that's the only way you get ahead.
What I really love about my field is the competition isn't that bad because there's so much freedom in a chemical engineering degree. Like I can go anywhere in the world. I can go into any industry I want. If I try to compete with my peers in oil, no chance I would be blown out the water like that. But I don't want to do oil. Food science, that was great. Like I got that interview with Pepsi. I got in because it wasn't on most people's radars. You have to know what kind of lifestyle you want. And I value my freedom and independence. I also like STEM stuff. So chemical engineering was the most logical conclusion. Like don't think so. Like to people questioning what your major should be, think more in terms of what kind of lifestyle you want. Like, do you want one where you're able to travel around? Do you want one where you're able to, like, change industries? Do you want that freedom? Do you want stability? And then kind of go from there. It doesn't necessarily be the nitty-gritty of, do I care that much about thermodynamics? Because it's not just that. There's a whole lifestyle associated with every single career path you choose.
I think it's just being cognizant of actually what you really want. It's not that you want this particular job, it's that you want this particular life and you want to live a particular way. So why not make decisions towards optimizing for that particular lifestyle?
Again, like business people, I could never be a business major. Even if the coursework isn't necessarily that rigorous, it's just that lifestyle. You have to compete so much in terms of internships, jobs. If you run a business, that's a 24-hour job. You're always on, always on. You have a stake in this one business, and I could never live like that. That's just not for me. That's something I never want to deal with. Don't even get me started on politics. Like, I could never be like a policymaker. I'd be canceled so fast. Forget about it.
But that's the thing. Like, you understand that, and there's no shame in admitting that you don't want to do that.
Exactly. You don't even have to know what makes you necessarily happy. What makes you miserable? And then just steer clear of that. That helps too. You can work backwards, just every little data point of, when you see a YouTuber give that apology, you're like, well, that's not me. That's a data point. That means you want to be a public figure.
They call it anti-goals. It's useful to have things that you don't want to achieve as opposed to things you do.
Exactly. Just things you really do not want to deal with, stuff you cannot touch with a 10-foot pole. That's also very useful stuff.
Can you tell me what's one quality or characteristic you think you would add as an employee?
You know what? Honestly, I would say my experience with working with other people, other personalities, and I know I can't say my autism in an interview, but I honestly do think it has given me a different perspective than most people. It does add, like my ideas, when I say them, people think they're a little out there, but it lets them kind of jump off of that and start thinking in a different way. And also that just kind of respect for other people, because I'm going to blast my STEM folks for a little bit. We do have a superiority complex. We think we're better than the people in marketing. We think we're better than the people in this department, that department, but it's like, it's an ecosystem. All of our jobs are necessary, and we have to, approach each other as such and come at each other correctly. Like with Pepsi, I was talking to truck drivers. I was talking to just factory frontline employees. Some people were coming at them, talking down on them, even though these are people 20 years older than them. But when you understood and respected them for what they do, what they contribute, their labor and their humanity, everything just works out.
Offering that different perspective, but also having empathy that everyone is valued.
Exactly. Like, again, anyone can plug in the numbers, but if I can't stand to be around you 8 hours a day, then I don't want you at my company. Like, do I want to pay to be around you every day? That was my first ever internship. Like, I spent my other summers doing classes at community college because some classes I felt I had to take twice in order to really get the material. I emphasize the fact that I wasn't a prep school kid. I was a transfer student. I did work these nightmare retail jobs at like Skechers and T-Mobile. I had that respect for my fellow man. I was able to swallow my ego and just learn something new. This was like at the career fair, so I saw my other friend in line. I think the interviewer heard this, but I was like telling her, hey, you're going to get this job. You're smart. You're qualified. And again, my resume itself wasn't very impressive. It was very just bare bones, but it was my personality. It was that love of other people that got me in.
And I mean, looking at USC, when you applied for transfer to USC, what's something that you wrote about in your essays? What's a point that you sort of really tried to make there?
That you're not getting rid of me. I got rejected once before. USC was the only school I applied to. So I said, listen, you can keep rejecting me. I will simply keep applying. It's going to happen eventually. You better just do it now. Obviously, I didn't say that aggressively, but I basically threatened them, saying it's now, it's next year, but it's going to happen.
Right, sort of read between the lines. I'm going to keep coming back.
They're like, what was your favorite website? And I remember I wrote down Craigslist. Craigslist was my favorite website because you could see different sides of your neighborhood, of your community, what people valued when it was like misconnections, like just events. It was just such a cool look into who you're hanging around.
What do you think the value is in being a transfer student, and what lessons could you take into the future once you graduate?
Honestly, I'm so grateful for my transfer student experience. Like, if I was a first year, I would have flunked out totally. Because my community college was like 15 minutes from my parents' house. I learned to be a student first. Like, I didn't have to stress about cooking my own meals, keeping my own like quarters, living on my own, living with a roommate. No, I was able to just live at home. First, learn how to be a college student versus a high school student, get comfortable in that group, and then get comfortable living on my own, being a college student who's also moved out. Like, it allowed me to take those steps, take my time, and take classes for fun, because again, those classes are like, what, $40 versus, $1,000 every year. And allowed me to meet a lot of cool people. Like, there were a lot of middle-aged people going back to school in my classes. They were so focused, so driven, and I really loved that environment. Taking your time, learning, realizing that, I'm 18, I'm still a kid, I don't know anything, like, no rush. Like, a lot of people I know, when they just first moved out, they got terrible grades, they were out drinking, partying, doing all types of drugs every night, and it totally took a toll on them.
Yeah, so it's sort of being a transfer gives you that softer landing into independence.
Exactly. It's a nice transitionary step. And the money, of course.
Well, because most of those classes that you're taking in your first 2 years are blanket classes anyway.
Exactly. They're blanket classes. I'm not paying rent. I'm just, there's less stress. Like, if I fail class, taking it again isn't the end of the world.
Right. You're not going to have to remortgage your house just to sit, Econ 101 again. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting to hear your perspective, because not a lot of people talk about there is a benefit in not starting college straight away. Because I think there's almost this stigma that you have to as soon as you graduate high school, you have to go to this college.
I think my Iranian background gave that, because, most in the Middle East, most Islamic countries, it's like you just live at home unless like you have a job or school that's simply too far away to commute, or you get married. It's just not normal to move out at 18. We believe, as a parent, why would you make your kid go broke and like just push them out when you can just be there with them and give them that ability to save their money, to do this, to do that. So I didn't feel a stigma staying at home. I didn't feel like, oh no, I'm so much slower than my white friends who moved out, have their own apartments, all that. I was like, no, that's their culture. This is mine. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong.
It's interesting how you sort of bring that with you culturally.
Again, the Iranian American, I'm every SoCal Persian girl. I'm all of them.
Donya, if you could go back in time and give a younger you a tip or some advice, what would you tell her?
I would, warn her, who's going to pull some nonsense. And then I'm also going to just tell her, listen, I'm going to give her a heads up. You're not going to have as much access to your professors, and you have to continue to want it. Like, the fight isn't over. I kind of had that whole pressure of applying to transfer, that flame under me. But I did get a little complicit. I admit there were times I kind of just let my emotions get the best of me, a lack of motivation. But I'm just going to tell her, look, right now everything's probably going to be fine. I'm not like dying or flunking. But I feel like you could do a little bit better. If you just ask for a little bit more help, there's really no shame in saying, this isn't working, or maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe these people don't make me feel good about myself. They don't make me feel like I'm doing my best work, or that I can do my best work. Like, basically, don't be around anyone who makes you feel like you're stupid for asking a question.
I really appreciate you talking with me. It's good to see you again after such a long time.
You're the one who was ducking me, buddy.
Ducking you? I was busy. I was busy. I was overseas.
You never hit me. You never hit me. That you could have driven. You could have driven from Australia. You could have picked me up.
Swum. I promise to make more of an effort in future.
The transfer student experience.
The transfer student experience.